Shalom Israel, Most High in Christ blessed. My name is Brother Zerubbabel,
My name is Ezra Zelazar.
and we are with Children of Israel. Once again, we're back on the Sabbath to bring out another lesson for you. We're going to be dealing with what will be coming up on Tuesday evening at sundown will be the Passover. It's going to be not that long of a lesson. Just going to go over some basics. If you want to know more, excuse me, about the Passover, uh, suggest you go on YouTube, go to our channel. We've got lessons on there about uh, the calendar, about how the when the new year is, and dealing with the days, the week, the month, the year, breaking it all down for you, and explaining why we use the Enoch calendar, and showing through the precepts that our brothers and sisters out there that are following the moon are in error, which the scriptures tells us that we would be in error because we would go away from following the calendar as it was given to us, and that we would go wrong in our calculations and our celebration of the Lord's high holy days, which you see going on right now. And unfortunately for us today, as we're waking up, our people are so easy to just accept anything, even if it doesn't add up in the scriptures. It's not backed up by the scriptures. And so what you see happening, you see a lot of our brothers out here in the truth that are adding a 13th month to the calendar year, and doing this every few years or so that they could try and keep up with Esau's calendar and actually try and keep up with the seasons. But as Enoch tells us that we would go wrong and we would find that our high holy days would fall out of season if we follow the moon. And unfortunately, this started years ago with our forefathers when we were in different captivities. All you got to do is go read the book of Judges. You will see we were in captivity by a number of different nations that followed the moon, in which they still follow the moon today. And that's where we learned this stuff, from following the moon with these other nations and following their moon gods. We show all of that in these videos. Uh, we also have videos about the Passover, some of the deeper meanings with the Passover, as far as what the Passover meal stands for. Actually is a video. It's called the Passover meal, right? Yeah, it's called the Passover meal, which we break down what each part of the Passover meal actually means spiritually. So if you want to know more about the Passover, go and watch those videos. That's why we put them up there, so that we wouldn't have to go back year to year doing these lessons over and over and over again. It's the same information, you know what I mean? I see some of the camps do that, and to try and get out of the monotony of having the same precepts, they try and change stuff each time they do it. And like in some instances, not realizing that you're leaving some stuff out that you had last time, or you're adding some stuff from last time, and it could get a little bit confusing. But if you get a chance, go and watch them. The Passover begins this Tuesday evening at even. We're going to go through this lesson, basically just briefly to go through what the Passover is, so you get an understanding of what exactly the Passover is, uh, why we celebrate the Passover as Israelites, uh, just to answer the questions just right out before we actually get into it, uh, the Passover was an incident that actually occurred during our exodus, or just before our exodus out of Egypt. Um, the Most High informed Moses that he was going to go through the land of Egypt. He was going to kill all the firstborn children of the Egyptians, um, and told the Israelites basically to stay in their homes. There's a little bit more to it. We'll go through it. I just don't want to give too much information. Um,
Right.
our forefathers were commanded to stay inside. They were commanded to put blood over, the what do you call it, the door entrance to the home. When the angel of death, or went through the I can't even get the name out right now, but when which basically was Christ, when he
Right.
passed, when he went through the land, he would know that that was an Israelite home by the blood being over. What do they call that? The door.
The door frame.
I can't even think of what it. Yeah, the door frame, but they have a specific name for it in there in the scriptures. We'll go over and we read it. But the angel would pass over the home. That's why it was called the Passover. That home would get passed over. So, just in a nutshell, that's what the Passover is. Um, just before the Lord took us up out of Egypt, and we had what's now known as the Exodus out of Egypt. Um, and so, in celebration of that, there were just specific requirements that the Most High put on us, um, in order for us to commemorate and celebrate this event as a memorial yearly, as a yearly celebration. Um, so that's what's coming up on, excuse me, on Tuesday at evening, and you understand why it starts at evening as we go through it. Um, Let me see. Yeah, that's it. Tuesday evening is the Passover. You will find that if you go to different channels, some of our brothers had their Passovers already a couple of weeks ago. I know one particular group is having theirs on the same night we are, and I'm wondering, how did they come up with their calculation, if they're using the Enoch calendar, or if maybe they watched our video. I'm wondering about that. Um,
Right.
and then some are not having their Passovers for a couple of weeks. And you may ask, well, why is it that everybody's doing things differently? That's one of those great mysteries of the Bible, that you can have people read the same thing and somehow come up with all these different interpretations of it, which shouldn't happen. Okay. Um, but as far as, like I said, go watch our videos, go watch their videos, and compare the two. And I can guarantee you that there would be no comparison, because just right off the bat, without a doubt, there's no 13th month in the calendar. Okay, there is no 13th month. And no matter how you try to spin it, whether you're following the full moon, the dark moon, the crescent moon, any moon, the lunar Sabbath, whatever moon you're following, you are going to find yourself in trouble when it comes to trying to keep the high holy days in their correct season. Because from year to year, you're going to find that the moon falls behind the sun by about a couple of weeks each year. All right. So by the time you get to the third year, you got to add another 4 weeks to the calendar in order to put it back in its proper place. And that's what these camps are doing. Some of them are outright telling you they're doing it. Some of them are hiding it from their members, and the members are too lazy to actually go and research for themselves to find out that, hey, wait a second, you know, how is it that we had Passover at this time 2 years ago, but now this year we're having it at this time? Um, they don't question it. They just, just go along so that they don't get themselves in trouble with the camp leaders. Um, the blind leading the blind, as Christ would say.
Right.
Um, so basically, this is basic stuff. Another milk lesson, you know what I mean? The Most High gave us clear instructions on how to keep his high holy days. And with this one, this is going to be a brief lesson. It shouldn't take too long. So we're going to go through it. Let's open up first, as usual, with Hebrews 5:12 through 14.
The book of Hebrews, chapter 5 and verse 12. For when for the time ye ought to be teachers, ye have need that one teach you again, which be the first principles of the oracles of God, and are become such as have need of milk and not of strong meat. For everyone that uses milk is unskillful in the word of righteousness, for he is a babe. But strong meat belongeth to them that are of full age, even those whom by reason of use have their senses exercised to discern both good and evil.
Yeah, it was breaking up again. Just reminded me of a live that I was watching. Was it last week of Sonetta? Who was it that he had on there? He was interviewing. I can't even remember. I was sick, so I can't even remember. But he was interviewing someone, and he was having the same problem where his computer kept slowing down and it kept breaking in and out. And he was saying the same thing, like, wait a minute. Like, man, I've never had problems with my computer slowing down like this. Like, what is going on? And I'm noticing it's happening with more and more of, like either Israelite channels, almost anything that have to deal with our people, whether it's Islam, even Hassan Campbell. I don't know if you ever watch any of his videos. Been having the same
Mhm.
issues where all of a sudden, they're talking about, their numbers aren't showing the, actual number of people watching their videos, slowing down of the video and things like that, the audio going in and out. It's like, I wonder, uh, is YouTube doing this on purpose to our people? Because it appears that way. Um, but as you're reading it, it was doing that again with this Hebrews 5:12 through 14. But what he was reading is actually uh, very pertinent to our people coming out of these Christian churches, especially if you're new to the truth. This is an important lesson for you to start learning about the high holy days that the Most High gave to us, because what's going to be happening is while we're in the midst of celebrating the Feast of Unleavened Bread, you're going to have some of our people, many of our people, celebrating Easter next Sunday. Not tomorrow, but the following Sunday, I believe, is so-called Easter Sunday, right?
Right.
So you're going to
Hmm.
have a lot of our people that are going to be following Easter. And so these are our people that the scriptures is talking about in Hebrews 5:12. For when for the time you ought to be teachers, you have need that one teach you again, which be the first principles of the oracles of God, and are become such as have need of milk and not of strong meat. A lot of our people, including ourselves, we celebrated Easter back, when we were in Christianity. And, from the time we were kids, we were, taught these holidays, which now with the proper understanding, we know that these are not the holidays that are written in the Bible. Those are not the holidays that God gave to his people. So we've got to educate our people on the background of these holidays so that our people can get themselves true salvation and stop following these pagan rituals and following these other deities that we've been hoodwinked into following. Let's go to First Peter 2:2.
The book of First Peter, chapter 2 and verse 2. As newborn babes desire the sincere milk of the word, that ye may grow thereby.
So you have to become as a newborn babe. You've got to be retaught again. And one of the main things is coming up out of celebrating these wicked demonic holidays that have been pushed on our people, that now we no longer have to be pushed or coerced into celebrating. Our people are doing it happily, to go along with the rest of Esau society, um, in following these traditions, which we were commanded not to. We were commanded not to follow these traditions and these holidays, but yet our people continue to do it. Let's start off with going into this lesson with Proverbs 1 and 1 through 5.
The book of Proverbs, chapter 1 and verse 1. The Proverbs of Solomon, the son of David, king of Israel. To know wisdom and instruction, to perceive the words of understanding, to receive the instruction of wisdom, justice, and judgment, and equity, to give subtlety to the simple, to the young man knowledge and discretion. A wise man will hear and will increase learning, and a man of understanding shall attain unto wise counsel.
Read verse 6.
Verse 6, um, it says, to understand a proverb and the interpretation, the words of the wise and their dark sayings.
All right. So you may ask, well, what does this got to do with the Passover? It's got everything to do with it. In order for you to understand what the Passover is, um, how to celebrate it, when to celebrate it, um, you have to want to learn. You're going to have to desire to want to understand the scriptures and understand how the Most High actually interacted with his people back in that time. The Bible is the book that he left behind for his people in order for us to learn about him, to learn about our ancestors, to learn about our ancestors' interaction with this power that was there helping them out of all kinds of atrocities. And he also brought some atrocities on our people because our people were disobedient and didn't want to listen. Um, so you have to be someone that wants to receive instruction in wisdom, instruction in justice, instruction in judgment, in equity. All right. Want to, you should be someone that wants to uh, learn how to be subtle. All right. Somebody that wants to learn knowledge, someone that wants to learn discretion, someone that's going to be able to be seen as a wise man or woman, a wise person, uh, someone that's willing to increase their learning. Because the more you increase your learning, the closer that's going to bring you to the Most High. And Lord willing, put you on a path in order to get salvation. But if you click off, you change the channel, you're like, I don't want to hear that, you know what I mean? You dismiss it, then you're going to be doing the very thing that our forefathers did that got us into trouble to begin with. All right. So it's
Right.
time for our people to open their ears, open their spiritual eyes, and listen and watch and learn. Let's go to Psalm 78 and 1 through 8.
The book of Psalms, chapter 78, and verse 1. It says, "Give ear, O my people, to let me start again. Give ear, O my people, to my laws. Incline your ears to the words of my mouth. I will open my mouth in a parable. I will utter dark sayings of old, which we have heard and known, and our fathers have told us. We will not hide them from their children, showing to the generations to come the praises of the Lord and his strength and his wonderful works that he had done. For he established a testimony in Jacob and appointed a law in Israel, which he commanded our fathers that they should make them known to their children, that the generations to come might know them, even the children which should be born, who should arise and declare them to their children, that they might set their hope in God and not forget the works of God, but keep his commandments, and might not be as their fathers, a stubborn and rebellious generation, a generation that set not their heart aright, and whose spirit was not steadfast with God."
So he told us he was going to utter these dark sayings of old. He told us that he was going to open his mouth in a parable. And that's what he did all throughout the scriptures. He spoke to our people in parables. He spoke to our people in metaphors, and a lot that has to do with these high holy days. There's a lot of symbolism. There's a lot of metaphors that you're gonna see. Uh, a lot of these high holy days have everything to do with Christ. And so, in order for you to understand that, you've got to be willing to humble yourself and become like little children and be willing to learn. And then once you learn, you've got to go and teach it to your children. Because when you look at what's going on with the Israelites today, the so called Blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans, especially the children, yes, there is a plan out there to continue to destroy and corrupt the Israelite children. And you see it manifesting. In fact, did you see that situation that happened in Akron, Ohio last week, where the police had to have the police swarm the high school because these knuckleheads were fighting? It was like the whole school was
No.
in one big, huge mass brawl. They had to have the police
Mm-mm.
come out, pepper spraying the kids because the kids were all out of control, all up in the police officers' faces, cursing them out. And it was not just the boys, it was the girls too. They started finally having to arrest them, because these kids were completely out of control. And instead of the parents coming up and getting on their kids for acting the way they were, instead they were going after the police officers. These are just kids. What you spraying them in the face for with pepper spray? You didn't have to do this. Like, if you saw the video from the officers' cams, you would see that, yeah, your kid deserved to get sprayed in the face with some pepper spray. They needed to
Right.
learn to shut their mouth and listen and comply to what the officers were telling them, and they weren't doing it. They were trying to keep things cordial and tell them, just go to class, get out the halls, go to class. They were trying to sweep the school. They put the school on lockdown because there were too many fights going on. The police had to be called. These kids were completely out of control, the whole entire school. And these parents show up, and instead of getting on their kids, they want to go after the police officers for what I saw in the video for doing their job, because
Right.
these kids were in their faces, threatening them, trying to get physical with them, cursing them out, calling them all kinds of names. And then not only that, they didn't care that the police were there. They continued wanting to fight, even though the officers were telling them to stop, go to class, and what other recourse did they have but to pull out their pepper spray and promptly spray them in the face with the pepper spray to break up the fights. It was too many kids. So you can see what this society is doing to the children, to the Israelite children, you so called blacks, Hispanics, Native Americans. They're coming after your kids. They have been since we were brought over here on ships, since they landed here on ships. They've been targeting the kids, and it's getting worse. And the problem is that the kids are getting worse. And it comes down to the fact that the parents are just letting the school system raise their kids. You're sending your kids to school and basically just waiting for the government to raise your kids. That's what the school system is, to induct your kids into those societal norms of this society, which is all predicated upon wickedness, all of it,
Right.
everything from the holidays, everything that these kids are doing in school. These kids are not going to school to learn. These kids are going to school for social, for social hour, just to hang out. It's a hangout spot for the day. School has not been, it's no longer an institute of learning. It's no different than the kids going and hanging and kicking it at the mall every day and just to hang out with their friends. That's what schools become. And
Right.
these kids are just totally out of control. And part of that is because no one's teaching the generation to come. Well, I can't say no one, because that's what all of the Israelites are attempting to do right now, to teach the generations to come about our God, about our people, our history, our heritage, and bring that back into the remembrance of our people. But as I said, that the generation to come might know them, even the children which should be born, who should arise and declare them to their children. And the reason why we have to teach it to the children, as it says in verse 7, Psalm 78 and 7, that they might set their hope in God and not forget the works of God, but keep his commandments. That's the reason why we've got to teach these things to kids. We have to teach them the high holy days of the Most High, so that they would rather celebrate Passover than celebrate Easter. We've got to teach these high holy days to them, so that they would rather celebrate the Feast of Dedication rather than celebrating Christmas, Feast of Tabernacles, instead of wanting to celebrate Halloween and Thanksgiving. So the Most High has given us so many holy days for us to celebrate, but our people have their hearts set on celebrating these wicked holidays that have been pushed on us. And this is where verse 8 comes in. It says, it might not be as their fathers, a stubborn and rebellious generation, a generation that set not their heart aright, and whose spirit was not steadfast with God. And that's what you see happening with these children. These kids are stubborn. These kids are a very rebellious generation, and they're getting worse, because when you try and talk to them about doing the right things, they don't want to hear it. They don't want to hear it. Their hearts have been so corrupted with foolishness from everything from what they're watching and listening to on the internet, TV, the music, their friends at school, what they're seeing and dealing with in their homes, single parent households. Most of the parents don't even pay attention to their kids because they're out doing their own thing. Um, it's just so much wickedness and evil surrounding this generation of kids that they're completely lost. As he says, a generation that set not their heart aright. Their hearts are not set aright. Their hearts are set on foolishness and wickedness and ignorance. It says, in whose spirit was not steadfast with God. These children nowadays, their spirits are not steadfast with the Most High. And that's why you see so much evil going on in the midst of this generation. Um, And so, in order for them to get understanding, it's going to take the Israelites to come out and give the understanding of these parables, because Christ spoke to the people in parables. He spoke in the scriptures in parables. And in order for you to get full understanding of it, you've got to study, you've got to be willing to learn. Um, let's go to Matthew 13 and 13, because he's going to say the same thing we just read.
The book, the book of Matthew, chapter 13 and verse 13. Therefore, speak I to them in parables, because they seeing see not, and hearing they hear not, neither do they understand.
And that's what it's like when we're trying to talk to these kids nowadays. They're a very stubborn and rebellious generation, and they've got no understanding because they see the words written on the page in the book, but they don't see it. And it's the same thing with their parents. They don't see it. They don't even want to attempt reading it. It's amazing how many people, when they see the Bible open, like, what are you reading? A book? That's the book. It's almost as if somebody having a book in their hand is like the most outrageous thing in the world now, because they're all walking around with a computer in their hand. They've got a phone in their hand. So the concept of a book is just seems outlandish to them. And as it says, in hearing, they hear not. You could be talking to them, explaining the scriptures, teaching God's commandments. They hear the words, but they don't hear them. The words are going into their ear, but that's as far as it goes. It goes in one ear and out the other. Doesn't register. And so they just cannot understand. They can't seem to comprehend. Go to verse 34, Matthew 13:34, because he's going to repeat it.
Verse 34. All these things spake Jesus unto the multitude in parables, and without a parable spake he not unto them.
So he always spoke in parables to them. He always spoke in parables to us all throughout the scriptures. Even when he was physically on the earth teaching, he spoke in parables. And he did it for a reason. But our people still will not go and open up this book to remember the days of old as we're commanded to. They will not go and search out our forefathers. They will not go and search out our history, because our true history requires something of us. Our true history requires us to be a wise and understanding people, to be a spiritual people, to be a holy people. And in the society that we're being raised in today, it's easier to be a very wicked and sinful, evil nation rather than being God's chosen people. So our people reject our history because it requires you to be better than you are. Our people have become accustomed to mediocrity. Our people have come to accept mediocrity. And it's like, what can we do to change that? Go to Deuteronomy 32 and 7.
The book of Deuteronomy, chapter 32 and verse 7. Remember the days of old. Consider the years of many generations. Ask thy father, and he will show thee, thy elders, and they will tell thee.
And that's one of the things our people will not do. How many of our people will just come up and ask and say, hey, it should be obvious that we learned Halloween, Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's Eve, New Year's, Valentine's Day. What's the one they just had with the green last? What was it, last week or the week before? I can always forget the name of it. St. Patrick's Day,
Hmm.
um, Easter. It should be obvious to our people that these holidays were taught to us while our people were in slavery. But our people don't even take the time to even think about that. All it would take is a simple question or remembering the days of old. Okay, so what did our forefathers do before we were taught our oppressors' holidays? What customs did we keep? What holidays did we celebrate? What kind of food did our people eat? What did they do for fun? How, you know what I mean? It's like, what kind of laws did we keep?
Right.
What kind of schools did we have? You know what I mean? What kind of family system did we have? What kind of values did we have? Those thoughts don't even cross the mind of our people to even remember. They don't even try to remember the days of old. They don't even consider the years of the many generations that came before us. They don't even begin to ask of the parents or grandparents. In many situations, they may not even know they're part of their family. But if they do, they don't even bother to ask, hey, grandpa, what was things like when you were growing up? Tell me a little bit about, what was the world like? Grandma, what was things like when
Hmm.
you know what I mean? They don't even bother to ask. But if they do, it's our job to show them. It's our job to teach them. So that lets you know that our adults are failing these kids, especially their parents and grandparents. All right, let's go to Job 8:8.
The book of Job, chapter 8 and verse 8. For inquire, I pray thee, of the former age, and prepare thyself to the search of their fathers.
So again, he's telling us to inquire of the former age. Go and research, read about, and learn about your forefathers, the Israelites. Go and dive deep into this book, into this Bible, this history that we've been left of a great people. That's what our children need to understand, is that they come from a great lineage. All right. And we have to prepare them. You have to prepare yourself, especially you adults that are just learning this for the first time now. You have to prepare yourself to the search of your fathers. And you got to be willing to open up the Bible. You got to be willing to read. You got to be willing to learn and apply what you've learned to your life. Because right now, it's almost life and death every time you step out your door. In this
Right.
society we're living in right now, you should be praying every day before you walk out the door. Just to pray and hope that you can make it home at the end of the day safely, because you just don't know anymore. You got grown men coming up missing, women coming up missing. Can't even count the number of kids that are going missing nowadays. So it's time to open up your eyes. It's time to open up your ears. Open up the spiritual eyes, open up your spiritual ears, and watch, listen, and learn. Be willing to learn about your forefathers and learn about your God and how he interacted with them. and learn what he commanded us and what he expected of us. All right. Um, so we're not going to read the entire book of Exodus. So in order for you to get a understanding of what's going on in the book of Exodus, I recommend you go and over this next week and read Exodus and learn
Hmm.
about Moses and what really happened during the Exodus, and stop watching those stupid movies that they put out every year, or not put
Right.
out, but they play the same movies every year about, at Easter time. Stop watching them and go open the book and read it. See, that's one of the things that people don't realize, that in this society, people learn the Bible from Disney. They had the cartoon, what was it, Joseph and the Boy of Dreams or something like that, that talked about Joseph.
The King of
They had
Egypt,
the
I
other
think
one
it's
about,
called.
is that what it is? And then
I
they
think it's
had the
called the
other
King
one
of
about
Egypt.
no, I think the one about Moses is King of Egypt. So they have the other one
Oh,
about Moses. You see, Disney. There's a multitude of these cartoons that Disney has put together and put out for the masses, and kids are learning about the Bible from Disney. And you will, with no hesitation, sit your child down in front of the TV, pop in that DVD. Maybe you'll live, you'll stream it now, but back in the day, it would be either a VHS tape or a DVD. Now you got streaming. But whatever the case, you will sit your kids down in front of the TV and let them watch this garbage. And then what do they get out of it? They come out thinking that Moses was a little Arab dude. You know what I
hmm.
mean? Have you thinking that Joseph was a little Edomite? Uh, there's a number of these cartoon movies that Disney put out um, in reference to the Bible, which is weird because they don't want the Bible being taught in school, but yet when these uh, movie companies, put out these cartoons and these movies, the parents will go spend money taking their kids to go watch them. And especially with our people, you'll let your kids go and watch them. Stop letting them watch that garbage.
Right.
Open the book up and read it to them. And if they know how to read, have them read it, so that they can know properly what actually really happened. All right. So we're going to actually start off in the book of Exodus, but we're going to start in chapter 11, and you're going to read verses 1 through 10.
The book of Exodus, chapter 11, and verse 1. And the Lord said unto Moses, Yet will I bring one plague more upon Pharaoh and upon Egypt. Afterwards he will let you go hence. When he shall let you go, he shall surely thrust you out hence altogether. Speak now in the ears of the people, and let every man borrow of his neighbor, and every woman of her neighbor, jewels of silver and jewels of gold. And the Lord gave the people favor in the sight of the Egyptians. Moreover, the man Moses was very great in the land of Egypt, in the sight of Pharaoh's servants, and in the sight of the people. And Moses says, Thus said the Lord, about midnight will I go out into the midst of Egypt, and all the firstborn in the land of Egypt shall die, from the firstborn of Pharaoh that sitteth upon his throne, even unto the first of the maidservants that is behind the mill, and all the firstborn of beasts. And there shall be a great cry throughout all the land of Egypt, such as there was none like it, nor shall be like it any more. But against any of the children of Israel shall not a dog move his tongue against man or beast, that ye may know how that the Lord doth put a difference between the Egyptians and Israel. And all these servants shall come down unto me, and bow down themselves unto me, saying, Get thee out, and all the people that follow thee, and after that I will go out. And he went out from Pharaoh in a great anger. And the Lord said unto Moses, Pharaoh shall not hearken unto you, that my uh, that my words may be multiplied in the land of
That
Egypt.
my
And
wonders.
Moses, um, that my wonders may be multiplied in the land of Egypt. And Moses and Aaron did all these hold on. And Moses and Aaron did all these wonders before Pharaoh, and the Lord hardened Pharaoh's heart so that he would not let the children of Israel go out of his land.
All right. So the Most High told Moses exactly what he was going to do. He told him in verse 4, Moses said, "Thus saith the Lord, about midnight will I go out into the midst of Egypt, and all the firstborn in the land of Egypt shall die, from the firstborn of Pharaoh that sitteth upon his throne, even unto the firstborn of the maidservant that is behind the mill, and all the firstborn of beasts." You see, that's one of the things they don't show you in the cartoon.
Right,
They don't show you that in the movies, that it wasn't just the firstborn of the people, the kids that died. It was even the animals. So the firstborn of animals, the firstborn of their children, everything um, died in Egypt. All right. So, and as he says, and there shall be a great cry throughout all the land of Egypt, such as there was none like it, nor shall be like it anymore. So that was the warning that was given to Moses to give to the people. All right. Let's go to Exodus 12. We're going to read verses 1 through 28.
the book of Exodus, chapter 12, and verse 1. And the Lord spake unto Moses and Aaron in the land of Egypt, saying, This month shall be unto you the beginning of months. It shall be the first month of the year to you. Speak ye unto the congregation of Israel, saying, In the 10th day of this month they shall take to them every man a lamb according to the house of their fathers, a lamb for an house. And if that household be too little for the lamb, let him and his neighbor next unto his house take it according to the number of the soul. Every man according to his eating shall make your count for the lamb. Your lamb shall be without blemish, a male of the first year. Ye shall take it out from the sheep or from the goats, and ye shall keep it up until the 14th day of the same month. And the whole assembly of the congregation of Israel shall kill it in the evening. And they shall take of the blood and strike it on the two side posts and on the upper door post of the house, wherein they shall eat it. And they shall eat the flesh in that night, roast with fire and unleavened bread, and with bitter herbs they shall eat it. Eat not of it raw, nor sodden at all with water, but roast with fire, his head with his legs, and with the purtenance thereof. And you shall let nothing of it remain until the morning, and that which remaineth of it until the morning ye shall burn with fire. And thou shalt ye eat it with your loins girded, your shoes on your feet, and your staff in your hand, and ye shall eat it in haste. It is the Lord's Passover. For I will pass through the land of Egypt this night, and I will smite the firstborn in the land of Egypt, both man and beast, against all the gods of Egypt. I will execute judgment. I am the Lord. And the blood shall be to you for a token upon the house where you are. And when I see the blood, I will pass over you, and the plague shall not be upon you to destroy you when I smite the land of Egypt. And that they shall be unto you for a memorial, and ye shall keep it a feast of the Lord throughout your generations. Ye shall keep it a feast by an ordinance forever. 7 days shall ye eat unleavened bread. Even the first day ye shall put away leaven out of your house. For whosoever eateth leavened bread from the first day until the seventh day, that soul shall be cut off from Israel. And in the first day there shall be an holy convocation. In the seventh day there shall be a holy convocation to you. No manner of work shall be done in them, save that which every man must eat, that only may be done of you. And you shall observe the feast of unleavened bread. For in this self day have I brought you armies out of the land of Egypt. Therefore shall ye observe this day in your generations by ordinance forever. In the first month of the 14th day of the month at evening, ye shall eat unleavened bread until the 1 and 20th day of the month at evening. 7 days shall there be no leaven found in your house, for whosoever eateth that which is leavened, even that soul shall be cut off from the congregation of Israel, whether he be a stranger or born in the land. Ye shall eat nothing leavened in all your habitations, ye shall eat unleavened bread. Then Moses called for all the elders of Israel and said unto them, draw out and take you a lamb according to your families and kill the Passover. And ye shall take a bunch of hyssop and dip it in the blood that it is in the basin, and strike the lintel and the two side posts with the blood that it is in the basin. And none of you shall go out at the door of his house until the morning. For the Lord will pass through to smite the Egyptians, and when he seeth the blood upon the lintel and on the two side posts, the Lord will pass over the door and will not suffer the destroyer to come in unto your houses to smite you. And ye shall observe this thing of an ordinance to thee and to thy sons forever. And it shall come to pass when ye come to the land which the Lord will give you, according as he had promised, that ye shall keep this service. And it shall come to pass when your children shall say unto you, what mean ye by this service? That ye shall say, it is the sacrifice of the Lord's Passover, who passed over the house of the children of Israel in Egypt, when he smote the Egyptians and delivered our houses. And the people bow the head and worship. And the children of Israel went away and did as the Lord had commanded Moses and Aaron. So did they.
So you can see this is the same thing that we're doing today. Exactly what is commanded um, for us to explain to you why we're keeping the Passover. As it says, and it shall come to pass when your children shall say unto you, what mean ye by this service? Why are we serving, why are we doing this? That ye shall say, it is the sacrifice of the Lord's Passover, who passed over the houses of the children of Israel in Egypt when he smote the Egyptians and delivered our houses, and the people bowed their head and worshiped. So that's what we were explaining at the beginning of the lesson. That's the reason why we keep the Passover, to memorialize the Most High delivering our people out of Egypt by smiting all the firstborn in the land of Egypt and passing over the homes of the Israelites. And that was the word that I couldn't think of, the lintel. It's called the lintel and the side posts of the door. But you can see he gave us specific instructions on how to keep this service. He talked about how on the 10th day of the first month, which is the first month of the year, on the 10th day, you take the lamb and set it aside. What kind of lamb? He told us specifically what kind of lamb. It had to be a lamb without blemish. It couldn't have any problems with it. All right. You kept the lamb until what day? He said the 14th day. And then on the 14th day at evening, when the sun goes down, which would actually be the 15th day, you will go ahead and the lamb would be killed. And that's where they were commanded to take the blood, put it on the doorpost, the side posts of the door, and on the overhead of the door, which he calls the lintel, so that um, the Israelites that are residing in that home wouldn't get killed. All right, by the destroyer. That's what is called the destroyer. Um, so you can see he gave us specific instructions. Talked about how after the lamb was killed, how we're supposed to roast it with fire, how we're supposed to not sodden it in water. We're not supposed to eat it raw. You have to, we were commanded to roast it with the head, with the legs, the entire body of it. Um, we weren't supposed to let any of it remain until the next day. So whatever you cook that night should be enough for everyone to eat, and whatever doesn't get eaten has to be burned with fire that next day. All right. Tells us how we're supposed to eat it with our loins girded, our shoes on our feet, and your staff in your hand, and you should eat it in haste because that night they had to hurry up and eat because they knew that they were going to quickly be pushed out of the land of Egypt after Pharaoh and his people saw what the Lord was doing to their firstborn. They wanted the Israelites out, they wanted them gone. So they had to eat the Passover in a hurry. They didn't have time to sit down like we do today and relax and enjoy the meal. They had to eat it in haste, as he said. Um, and then he also explained what was going to happen. He says, "For I will pass," this is verse 12, "for I will pass through the land of Egypt this night and will smite all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, both man and beast, and against all the gods of Egypt I will execute judgment. I am the Lord." And that's one of the things that people fail to understand about the coming salvation for you, the Israelites, that is going to happen in the future. You so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans, not only is the Most High coming back for vengeance on those nations that did these things to his people, but he's also coming back to pay vengeance on these gods, these deities that they worship. So all, you know what I mean? All these different deities they have was worshiping when we're celebrating their holidays, like Ishtar for Easter and Tammuz and all of this for Christmas, and all of they're going to be gone. It's going to be destroyed. All these so-called gods are going to no going to be no longer existing. Who's walking around talking about Ra today? Except a few of our foolish people that are trying to get caught up in this Egyptology. But um, overall, nobody's walking around talking about these deities today from Egypt because the Most High paid them back. He destroyed them. All right. Let me see. And that's what he says, against all the gods of Egypt, I will execute judgment. I am the Lord. So he's going to come back and execute judgment on all of these so-called gods that they have our people worshiping. Um, and as it explains in verse 13, and the blood shall be to you for a token upon the houses where ye are. And when I see the blood, I will pass over you, and the plague shall not be upon you to destroy you when I smite the land of Egypt. So, what is the Lord telling us? That it was He Himself that was a destroyer going through the land of Egypt. That's why it said, "When I will pass over you." It says, "And when I see the blood, I will pass over you." A lot of people seem to not understand that. In fact, just to prove that that was Christ, get 1 Corinthians 10. I almost forgot what it was.
First Corinthians, the book of First Corinthians, chapter 10, and verse 1. Moreover, brethren, I will not that ye should be ignorant how that all our fathers were under the cloud, and all passed through the sea, and were all baptized into Moses in the cloud and in the sea, and did all eat the same spiritual meat, and did all drink the same spiritual drink, for they drank of that spiritual rock that followed them, and that rock was Christ.
Let me see. Well, that answers it. That tells us. Go all the way down to That's fine. That's fine. Oh, actually, no, no, no. Go all the way down to 10. There you go. That's what I want. Verse 10. Go all the way down to 10.
All right, continuing verse 5. But with many of them God was not well pleased, for they were overthrown in the wilderness. Now these things were our examples, to the intent we should not lust after evil things, as they also lusted. Neither be ye idolaters, as were some of them. As it is written, the people sat down to eat and drink, and rose up to play. Neither let us commit fornication, as some of them committed, and fell in one day 23,000. Neither let us tempt Christ, as some of them also tempted, and were destroyed of serpents. Neither murmurers, as some of them also murmured, and were destroyed of the destroyer.
All right. So that destroyer was Christ. As we're reading, going back to Exodus, again, this was Christ speaking. Verse 13, going back to Exodus. And the blood shall be to you for a token upon the houses where ye are. And when I see the blood, I will pass over you, and the plague shall not be upon you to destroy you when I smite the land of Egypt. So again, this is going back to show you how Christ was with the Israelites the whole time, that we never had any dealings with the Father. A lot of even some of our brothers in the truth don't seem to understand that Christ was the God that we were dealing with the whole time. We weren't dealing with his Father. That's why even now we still got to go through Christ in order to get to the Father. All right. So that's why you've got to be willing to open your spiritual eyes and ears and learn. And that's why you hear me say and hear us say all the time that some of you need to go back and redo your name doctrine, because when you go and read Exodus 3, that wasn't the Father standing up there talking to Moses. That was his son. And some
Right.
of them don't seem to get it. Let me see. Real quick, let's go to Exodus 3 and 14. Actually, start in verse 13. I'll go ahead and read it. Exodus 3 and 13.
Right.
It says, it reads, And Moses said unto God, Behold, when I come unto the children of Israel, and shall say unto them, The God of your fathers hath sent me unto you. And they shall say to me, What is his name? What shall I say unto them? And God said unto Moses, I am that I am. So you have, a lot of our people arguing and fighting about the true name. And what is the name of the Father? It told us in Exodus 3 and 14 through 15, his true name. They forget to read the rest of verse 14.
Right.
Verse 14 again reads, And God said unto Moses, I am that I am. He's like, you know what? Don't worry about what my actual real name is. I am. I exist. I am that I am. And he said, Thus shalt thou say unto the children of Israel, I am hath sent me to you. I am. I am that I am wasn't his name. He was just saying, I am that I am. Then he said, I am. So his name was I am. As he put it right here, what we're reading right now. So all through the whole rest of the scriptures, when you read that I am he, all throughout the scriptures. You heard us go over this before, that even in the New Testament, when Christ was talking to the Pharisees and Sadducees and those boneheads that kept asking him, who are you? And even he that I've told you from the beginning, I am he. I am the vine. I am the bread of life. I am, I am, I am, I am. Been telling us. It's been right there in the scriptures. Just you had your eyes and your ears closed and haven't been listening. That this was Christ up there speaking to Moses on the mountain, telling Moses, you know what? Tell the people I am sent me unto you. And then he said, you know what? And God said, moreover, unto Moses, thus shalt thou say unto the children of Israel, the Lord God of your fathers, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob hath sent me unto you. This is my name forever, and this is my memorial unto all generations. So he said, the Lord God of your fathers. So you got people arguing over, is it the Lord God of your fathers, or is it the I am? Which one is it? They're arguing about the name of the Father when it wasn't the Father standing there talking to Moses, saying that his name was I am, and saying that he was the Lord God of their fathers. It was Christ standing there saying that. So when they're saying his name is Yahweh, that's what he said in Exodus 3:15, Yahweh. That was Christ saying his name is, if you want to go by that, yeah, that was Christ saying his name is Yahweh. Or Jehovah, whichever one you want to use.
Right.
Do you see the problem with that? Do you see the why I have such a
Right.
problem with them pushing this Yahweh and Yahweh Shai?
Right.
Like Yahweh and Yahweh Shai is the same person. So you gonna have to go redo your name doctrine. I'm sorry to have to tell you, but the elders, when they came up with that Lashon Kodash, made an error, and you're carrying on that error even today. All right, so just wanted to point that out real quick. Um, Going back to, and you know, we will get pushback on that. We will, because there are brothers that are pushing this Lashon Kodash and this name doctrine, and they won't let up. That you got to speak the Paleo Hebrew. You got to speak the Hebrew. You got to say the name in Hebrew. Where are we at? Exodus 12. Let's go to, we're going to stay in Exodus 12. Going to read verses 29 to 51. Read the second half.
The book of Exodus, chapter 12, and verse 29. And it came to pass that at midnight the Lord smote all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, from the firstborn of Pharaoh that sat on his throne unto the firstborn of the captive that was in the dungeon, and all the firstborn of cattle. And Pharaoh rose up in the night, he and all his servants and all the Egyptians, and there was a great cry in Egypt, for there was not a house where there was not one dead. And he called for Moses and Aaron by night and said, rise up and get you forth from among my people, both ye and the children of Israel, and go serve the Lord as ye have said. Also take your flock and your herds, and ye have as ye have said, and be gone, and bless me also. And the Egyptians were urgent upon the people that they might send them out of the land in haste, for they said, we be all dead men. And the people took their dough before it was leavened. Their hold on. And the people took their dough before it was leavened. Their kneading dough being bound
Kneading
up in their
troughs.
clothes
Kneading
upon
troughs.
kneading troughs,
troughs,
being pros
like
troughs. Okay, being bound up in their clothes upon their shoulders. And the children of Israel did according to the word of Moses, and they borrow of the Egyptians jewels of silver and jewels of gold and raiment. And the Lord gave the people favor in the sight of the Egyptians, so they lent unto them such thing as they required, and they spoiled the Egyptians. And the children of Israel journey from Ramesses to
Ramsey.
Ramses to Succoth, about 600,000 on foot that were men being besides children. And a mixed multitude went up also with them, and flocks and herds, even every much and even very much cattle. And they bake unleavened cakes of the dough which they brought forth out of Egypt, for it was not leavened, because they were thrust out of Egypt and could not tarry, neither had they prepared for themselves any victuals. Now, the sojourner of the children of Israel who dwelt in Egypt was 430 years. And it came to pass at the end of the 430 years, even the self same day, it came to pass that all the host of the Lord went out from the land of Egypt. It is a night to be much observed unto the Lord for bringing them out from the land of Egypt. This is that night of the Lord to be observed of all children of Israel in their generations. And the Lord said unto Moses and Aaron, this is the ordinance of the Passover. There shall no stranger eat thereof, but every man's servant that is bought for money, when thou hast circumcised him, then shall he eat thereof. And foreigner and higher servant shall not eat thereof. In one house shall it be eaten. Thou shalt not carry forth out of the flesh abroad out of the house, neither shall ye break a bone thereof. And the congregation of Israel shall keep it. And when a stranger shall sojourn with thee, and will keep the Passover to the Lord, let all his male be circumcised, and then let him come near and keep it. And he shall be as one that it is born in the land, for no uncircumcised person shall eat thereof. One lot shall be to him that is a homeborn, and unto the stranger that sojourn among you. Thus did all the children of Israel, and as the Lord commanded Moses and Aaron, so did they. And it came to pass the selfsame day that the Lord did bring the children of Israel out of the land of Egypt by their armies.
And so this again comes back to a misunderstanding that most Christians have, especially these apologetics, of whether or not the Most High considered Israelites strangers. If you read carefully, you will see that he was talking about two different kinds of strangers or foreigners. He's talking about those Israelites that were not born in the land. They're being called strangers. And then he goes on to talk about foreigners that were of the other nations that were not to eat of the Passover because it wasn't for them. And if you read it carefully, you would understand. But we'll go through it real quick. Going to verse 43 says, and the Lord said unto Moses and Aaron, this is the ordinance of the Passover. There shall no stranger eat thereof, but every man's servant that is bought for money, when thou hast circumcised him, then shall he eat thereof. Because there were instances where an Israelite may sell himself to another Israelite if they're on hard times, and they could become their hired servant. Okay, so in that situation, if they got circumcised, because in some instances, what would end up happening is that some of our people wouldn't circumcise their kids during captivities. Things like that happened. And the Most High had already knew that that was going to happen. That's why he makes it clear in verse 45, a foreigner and an hired servant shall not eat thereof, making that distinction that when it comes to foreigners, those outside of the nation of Israel, no, they're not to eat the Passover. Verse 46, one house shall it be eaten, thou shalt not carry forth out of the flesh or brought out of the house, neither shall you break a bone thereof. All the congregation of Israel shall keep it. Verse 48, and when a stranger shall sojourn with thee and will keep the Passover to the Lord, let all his males be circumcised, and then let him come near and keep it, and he shall be as one that is born in the land, for no uncircumcised person shall eat thereof. These apologetics think that that's talking about the other nations, but he just made it
Hmm.
clear that foreigners are not to eat thereof. He's talking about strangers, Israelites that were to be born, because he already knew we were going to be scattered throughout the other nations, and that some of our people would be born in these other nations and they wouldn't be circumcised. They would be considered strangers, which you read about in the New Testament, which you read about in other parts of the scriptures. All right, that some of our brothers, our forefathers, that were born just like us today, we are strangers, even though we're Israelites. We are considered um, Gentiles because we have taken on Gentile customs until we come back to the knowledge of who we are and start keeping our customs. We are considered strangers. We are considered Gentiles, even though we are the Israelites. Okay. Um, but that's why we've got to make that distinction. That's why we've got to go through and read this clearly and be able to point it out so that people don't get confused, especially our people, because this is not, because you're starting to see that. In fact, we're watching one group having their Passover during this past week, and they allow Edomites into their congregation, and they had Edomites up on the stage at their Passover, singing and dancing and carrying on and having a good old time in the midst of their Passover with them. That's because even some of our brothers in the truth don't seem to understand the distinction that the Most High has made in this part of Exodus 12 about who should eat the Passover and who shouldn't. All right. Um, so with that, let's go to Exodus 13. Let's go to verses 1 through 22.
The book of Exodus, chapter 13 and verse 1. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Sacrifice unto me all the firstborn, whatsoever openeth the womb.
Sanctify, sanctify.
Oh, sanctify. Sanctify unto me all the firstborn, whosoever openeth the womb among the children of Israel, both of man and of beast, it is mine. And Moses said unto the people, Remember this day in which ye came out from Egypt, out of the house of bondage. For by strength of hand the Lord brought you out from this place. There shall no leavened bread be eaten. This day came ye out in the month Abib. And it shall be, when the Lord shall bring thee into the land of the Canaanites, and the Hittites, and the Amorites, and the Hivites, and the Jebusites, which he sware unto the fathers to give thee, a land flowing with milk and honey, that thou shalt keep this service in this month. 7 days thou shalt eat unleavened bread, and in the 7th day shall be a uh, feast to the Lord. Unleavened bread should be eaten 7 days, and there shall no leavened bread be seen with thee, neither shall there be leaven seen with thee in all thy quarters. And thou shalt show thy son in that day, saying, This is done because of that which the Lord did unto me when I came forth out of Egypt. And it shall be for a sign unto thee upon thy hand, and for a memorial between thine eyes, that the Lord's law may be in thy mouth. For with a strong hand had the Lord brought thee out of Egypt. Thou shalt therefore keep this ordinance in the season from year to year. And it shall be when the Lord shall bring thee into the land of the Canaanites, as he sware unto thee and to thy fathers, and shall give it and shall give it thee. Thou shalt set apart unto the Lord all the openeth. Hold on. That thou shalt set apart unto the Lord all that openeth the matrix, and every firstling that cometh out of the beast which thou hast. The male shall be the Lord's. And every firstling of an ass thou shalt redeem with an lamb. And if thou wilt not redeem it, then thou shalt break his neck. And all the firstborn of all man among the children shalt thou redeem. And it shall be when thy son asketh thee in time to come, saying, What is this? That thou shalt say unto him, By strength of hand the Lord brought us out from Egypt, from the house of bondage. And it came to pass, when Pharaoh would hardly let us go, that the Lord slew all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, both the first of man and the first of beast. Therefore I sacrifice to the Lord all that openeth the matrix, being male, but all the firstborn of my children I redeem. And it shall be for a token upon thine hand, and for frontlets between thine eyes. For by strength of hand the Lord brought us forth out of Egypt. And it came to pass, when Pharaoh had let the people go, that God led them not through the way of the land of the Philistines, although that was near. For God said, Lest peradventure the people repent when they see war, and they return to Egypt. But God led the people about through the way of the wilderness of the Red Sea, and the children of Israel went up harnessed out of the land of Egypt. And Moses took the bones of Joseph with him, for he had straitly sworn the children of Israel, saying, God will surely visit you, and ye shall carry up my bones away hence with you. And they took their journey from Succoth, and in camp in Etham, in the edge of the wilderness. And the Lord went before them by the day in a pillar of cloud, and led them the way, and by night in a pillar of fire, to give them light to go by day and night. See, he took not away the pillar of the cloud by day, nor the pillar of fire by night from them for the people.
All right. So basically, you can see the Most High is giving clear instructions on the Passover. One of the things we got to remember to do, as he commanded, is that there shouldn't be any leaven found in your home for that whole 7 days. So the first night on the 14th at evening, which is the 15th, is when the lamb would be killed. You would eat your lamb with the bitter herb and with the wine and with the unleavened bread. And then from there, you would eat unleavened bread for 7 days straight. For some reason, some of our brothers seem to think that the Passover night and the Feast of Unleavened Bread are two different high holy days when it's the same thing. All right. Um, and again, that comes back to how is it that all of us are reading the same Bible and somehow people come up with these different interpretations of what's going on in it. Um,
Right.
but we are commanded to eat unleavened bread for 7 days, as it reads in verse 6. 7 days thou shalt eat unleavened bread, and the 7 days shall be a feast to the Lord. Unleavened bread shall be eaten 7 days, and there shall no leavened bread be seen with thee. Neither shall there be leaven seen with thee in all thy quarters. So that means that before the Passover comes, you need to get anything that's made with leaven for cooking out of your house. People got to learn to stop going overboard and throwing cleaning supplies because it's got leaven in it. That's stupid. It's not talking about that. It's talking about leaven used for cooking. So anything that's
Right.
got leaven in it that you can eat, you need to get out of your house. All right. Um, some of our people just get overzealous, and you got people looking at toothpaste and mouthwash and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
It's got leaven in it. That's just crazy stuff. Um, but you shouldn't have any leavening agents that are used for cooking in your home. You shouldn't eat anything, consume anything that's got leaven in it. If you have a
Right.
toothpaste that has got leaven in it, you don't want to brush your teeth with leaven toothpaste. Find a toothpaste that don't got it, I guess. You know what I mean? Um, but I doubt there's very many toothpastes that actually have any kind of leaven in it anyway. May have other chemicals that Esau's putting in it that might harm you later on in life, but um, when it's talking about leaven, it's talking about leaven that's used for cooking. Cooking. Let me say it again. Cooking that you can eat. So throughout that entire week, you should not be consuming, no cupcakes. You know what I mean? Baking no cakes with leaven. Just anything with leaven in it, you should not be consuming. You shouldn't be eating. In fact, that was one of the things that we saw with one of the groups that have, was doing their Passover over the past week. And again, this is why some of these groups need to tell their people to be careful what they film and put on social media, because there was one couple that was, and I'm assuming that it had to have been their first Passover. They were excited. They were filming their
Right.
entire journey, going to the Passover, filming their Passover. Um, but in the midst of it, they showed one of the days during during the Feast of Unleavened Bread, because they had already had the Passover part of it, earlier, the week. So this was part way through the week, where they were, showed they were staying in a hotel. They were downstairs in the hotel lobby. All the hotels host breakfast in the morning. And what were they eating? They had eggs, which got no leaven in it, of course, but they were also eating waffles. And the packaged, what do they call those? What do they call those little sweet? Oh my gosh, what are those things called? They're not actual cinnamon rolls. Well, I guess kind of. The Intamins. You know what I'm talking about? Like the Intamins in the package. They're like little cinnamon roll type things with different flavors. There's something like that. But of course, they, being packaged, they have leaven in them.
Hmm.
You know
Like biscuits.
the no, not biscuits. They're man, what are they? Man,
Mm.
they're almost like cinnamon buns or cinnamon rolls, but it's a certain type that you can buy out of the store, and they've got like a whole box of them, and you could put in your kid's lunch. I don't think what
Like
they
Pop
call those
Tarts.
things. No, not Pop Tarts. Let me see.
Hmm.
Yeah, give me a second. Let me look this up.
Yeah, now I'm curious.
Let me share my screen real quick because they popped up exactly what I was looking for. Let me know when you can see it.
It's coming up. There it is.
All right. See, like these bear claw type things, like these cinnamon rolls, that come in the pack that you can put in your kid's lunch. The Clover Hill, it was a type of these that the hotel had given to them. You know what I mean? During, for breakfast, they have like the Danish, the honey buns, those type of things. Those got leaven in them. Those are definitely, and like I said, some of these groups need to maybe, inform their people about, what they're putting on social media, because like I said, they were showing them, videotaping themselves during the midst of the Feast of Unleavened Bread, having breakfast in the hotel's lobby while they were eating these cinnamon rolls, but also they had a plate full of waffles and you know what I mean? So basically breaking the unleavened bread portion of the feast, because you're not supposed to consume anything with leaven during that 7 days. And they clearly were breaking it. Um, and it was actually my wife that pointed it out, like, wait a minute, they're
Right.
supposed to be having the feast of unleavened bread. And I was like, the only guy said, you know what? It looks like from watching it that this might be their first Passover, and they're excited. They're at the Passover and everything like that, and it, just out of ignorance that it may have not been told to them, that they don't understand, they didn't know, they don't know, maybe that it had been explained to them that um, you're not supposed to consume anything with leaven for 7 days. They're excited. They're at Passover. Let's go get some breakfast down in the lobby, and didn't, really think about it, and sat down and grabbed the food and started eating, and, didn't really, which, shouldn't be an excuse. But on the other hand, we got, we're new to it, a lot of our people. So not going to get it right the first time. But
Right.
again, be careful what you're putting on social media, because things like that people will see and open the camp or the group or the church or whoever it is up to scrutiny, that wait a minute, they're breaking the Feast of Unleavened Bread. They're sitting there eating waffles, which got leaven in it. They're sitting there eating these claw, you know what I mean, cinnamon roll, cinnamon bun things that got leaven in it. So just so anybody that watches this video, we're not to eat anything that's got leaven in it for 7 days. All right. Keep that in mind. You're going to have to go through and look at the ingredients and the things in your kitchen, and anything that's got leaven in it that's used for cooking or that's edible, take it out of your house. You got to get it out of your home. That's what is commanded. All right. Um, Let me read that part again. Exodus 13:7. Unleavened bread shall be eaten 7 days, and there shall no leavened bread be seen with thee. Neither shall there be leaven seen with thee in all thy quarters. So there can no leaven be found in your home. All right. Let's go. Let me see. Let's go to Exodus 23 and verse 14 through 19.
The book of Exodus, chapter 23, and verse 14. 3 times thou shalt keep a feast unto me in the year. Thou shalt keep the feast of unleavened bread. Thou shalt eat unleavened bread 7 days, as I commanded thee, in the time appointed of the month of Abib. For in for in it thou comest out from Egypt, and none shall appear before me empty. And the feast of harvest, the first fruit of thy labor which thou hast sown in the field, and the feast of ingathering, which is in the end of the year, when thou hast gathered in thy labor out of the field. 3 times in the year all the males shall appear before the Lord God. Thou shalt not offer the blood of my sacrifice with leavened bread, neither shall the fat of my sacrifice remain until the morning. The first of the first fruits in thy land thou shalt bring in to the house of the Lord thy God. Thou shalt not see a kid in his own mother's milk.
All right. So again, he's given us somewhat some of the same directions that he gave earlier. Um, that he's letting us know that 3 times in a year, meaning at during the time of these 3 different feasts, that we should keep a feast unto him. He gives the 3 different feasts, and one of those feasts is the feast of unleavened bread. All right. Um, 3 times in the year, meaning during those 3 feasts, all the males should be appearing before the Lord. Um, and that's why you read about people going to Jerusalem during these different feasts when you read the scriptures. All right. Um, so we know what to do for the Passover. Um, the 14th at evening is when the lamb would be killed. You'd roast your lamb, eat it that night. You should be having the lamb with bitter herbs along with unleavened bread and wine. Okay, those are the 4 things that you should be having for your Passover meal. Okay, um, not letting it sit up overnight. Anything that doesn't get eaten, remember you got to burn it to get rid of it. Not just go throw it in the garbage can. That's the specific instruction that he gave. After that, for 7 days straight, you've got to eat unleavened bread. So that first night during the Passover is the first night of your eating of unleavened bread. It doesn't start the next day. That some of our brothers seem to think that the Feast of Unleavened Bread is separate from the Passover and starts the next day. No, you start the eating of the unleavened bread when you eat the Passover. That's why he's telling us to, not eat any leavened bread with the blood of his sacrifice. It's got to be unleavened bread when you eat the Passover lamb, when you eat the lamb with the bitter herb, with unleavened bread. All right. Um, let's go to Exodus 34 and 18 through 20. It explains it again. That's why we're going to these precepts so that you can get an understanding of what is expected for the Passover.
The book of Exodus, chapter 34, and verse 18. The feast of unleavened bread shalt thou keep. 7 days thou shalt eat unleavened bread, as I commanded thee in the time of the month of Abib. For in the month of Abib thou camest out from Egypt. All that openeth the matrix is mine, and every firstling among thy cattle, whether ox or sheep, that is male. But the first of an ass thou shalt redeem with a lamb, and if thou redeem him not, then shalt thou break his neck. All the firstborn of thy sons thou shalt redeem, and none shall appear before me empty.
And see, and that's another thing that you don't see going on at these Passovers. You see a lot of concerts,
Right.
little stage plays going on. um, selling and buying. You know what I mean? All this stuff going on during the time of the Passover. But some of the more important things that are commanded of us, you don't see going on, which we're going to be doing the lesson next Sabbath about the washing of feet. You never hear any of the leaders or camps or anyone ever talk about this act that Christ did during the Last Supper, which was at the time of the Passover,
Right.
which he washed the feet of his disciples and commanded the disciples to do the same to each other. We're commanded. This is a command from Christ himself that we wash each other's feet, giving us which is baptism. But some of our brothers don't want to hear the truth. But we're going to do a class on this next Sabbath. So be prepared for that. All right. We've been talking about it. We just haven't actually done the class yet. But we're going to next Sabbath. Some of these important things that we're commanded to do are, are not being done. How many of these Passovers do you see people come up to redeem the firstborn of their sons at these Passovers? You don't see it happening.
Mm-mm.
You know what I mean? It just things that are being overlooked because people want to have fun. They want to make the Passover fun so people will spend the money to go. They would rather have people at the Passover buying and selling stuff, selling and buying, concerts. You're seeing all kinds of stuff going on at these Passovers now, and we wonder why the Most High is mad at us. It is what it is.
Right.
Let's go to Leviticus 23 and verse 4 through 8. What are you going to say?
No, I mean that's right. I mean between all of that and even auctions, trying to auction off stuff on the Passover.
Oh, that's true too. Yeah. And they forget that's the reason why Christ went into the temple and started turning over the tables and doing all of that because they were doing the same thing back then. That during the time of the Passover, what some of them are calling Black Wall Streets or whatever it is that they're the term that they're using for their Passover, because there are multiple camps doing this now. They're doing the same thing that the Pharisees and these guys were doing at that time when they were selling stuff during the Passover. And Christ got mad and went into the temple and started overturning the table and the money changers and all of that. And that's what I'm saying. It makes you scratch your head, like they're reading the same Bible we're reading, but why is this stuff going on? And not to mention, you know, people having their Passovers in bars or at dance clubs. All right. Um, Common sense would tell you, no, we're not going to have our Passover at no bar. No, we're not going to rent out a dance club or a nightclub to have our Passover. That should just be common sense when there are so many other types of venues at a hotel or you know what I mean, some kind of a hall that you could rent out in order to have your Passover. That tells you where some of our brothers' minds are at when the first thought, oh man, hey, the club on the corner over there, let's call them up and see how much they will charge us for us to have our Passover at their club. That thought would never even come into my mind to have our Passover. You know what I mean? At a club,
Right.
any kind of club,
Right.
or a bar, any kind of bar. All right. And I'm avoiding using the word strip club for a reason, because one of the particular groups that everybody tried to get on because they had their Passover I'm just calling it at a club because that's what it looked like to me. A club that
Right.
just so happened to have scantily clad hostesses working there. Um, People got overzealous and were saying they had it in a strip club. No, it was not a strip club, even though where they had it was bad enough. But, don't want
Right.
anybody to say they're lying on us. But no, we should not be having our Passovers in these kind of venues um, at all. You know what I mean? But this is the kind of stuff that's going on in Israel today. We're making the same mistakes and worse than what our forefathers did. That's why we're still here. That's why we're still here in Babylon the Great, and our Messiah has not been sent to get us yet because our people refuse to change. All right, go ahead though.
The book of Leviticus, chapter 23, and verse 4. These are the feasts of the Lord, even holy convocations which ye shall proclaim in their seasons. In the 14th day of the first month, at evening, is the Lord's Passover. On the 15th day of the same month is a feast of unleavened bread unto the Lord. 7 days ye must eat unleavened bread. In the first day ye shall have an holy convocation, ye shall do no servile work therein. But ye shall offer an offering made by fire unto the Lord 7 days. In the seventh day is a holy convocation, ye shall do no servile work therein. And the Lord spake unto
See, that's
Moses,
why you
saying,
got just
oh,
just
sorry.
verse through eight, three, 4 through 8.
Yeah.
So this is why you got to go through and go precept upon precept and read all of the different instructions so that you get a full understanding. So now we're understanding that on the 14th day of the first month at even is the Lord's Passover, and on the 15th day of the same month of the Feast of Unleavened Bread. People think that it's talking about two different days, when in actuality, it's not. The 14th day at even is the 15th day. That's where you got to make sure you're reading things correctly and in context and get a full understanding of what the scriptures are talking about. You got to understand the way the Lord talks and the way He's had these things written in the scriptures. It's not two different days, it's the same day, just saying it two different ways. The 14th at evening is going into what? The next day, which is the 15th day. All right. So that's when the Passover is, on the 14th day at evening, which is the 15th day. It's the same thing. It's the same day. All right. Um, we're also finding out that the first day of the Feast of Unleavened Bread and the last day of the Feast of Unleavened Bread are holy convocations, meaning holy gatherings. We got to, gather together, celebrations. All right. The other days, you don't have to come together. If you want to for the whole, if you want to, come together all 7 days, and by all means, you can do that. But the first and last day, we're commanded to come together. All right. Um, so the first day is a Sabbath day. The last day of the Feast of Unleavened Bread, the seventh day, is a Sabbath day. That's what he's saying when he says, in the first day you shall have an holy convocation, meaning a holy gathering. You shall do no servile work therein. Servile work meaning go to work. You shouldn't be, going out and working to make money on that day, working for your boss. You shouldn't be doing that on that day. You should be having the
Right.
day off. It's a Sabbath day of rest, just like um, the Sabbath is today. Those
Right.
high holy days, where it is ordered by the Most High, are Sabbath days of rest that are separate from the Sabbath day. All right. These high holy days are their own separate Sabbaths. Some of our people seem to think that those Sabbath days run in conjunction with the Sabbath day, and that's not how it works. Let's go to Deuteronomy chapter 16 and verses 1 through 8.
The book of Deuteronomy, chapter 16 and verse 1. Observe the month of Abib and keep the Passover unto the Lord thy God. For in the month of Abib the Lord thy God brought thee forth out of Egypt by night. Thou shalt therefore sacrifice the Passover unto the Lord thy God of the flock and the herd, in the place which the Lord shall choose to place his name there. Thou shalt eat no leavened bread with it. 7 days shalt thou eat unleavened bread therewith, even the bread of affliction, for thou comest forth out of the land of Egypt in haste, that thou mayest remember the day when thou comest forth out of the land of Egypt all the days of thy life. And there shall be no leavened bread seen with thee in all thy coasts 7 days, neither shall there anything of the flesh which thou sacrificest the first day at evening remain all night until the morning. Thou mayest not sacrifice the Passover within any of thy gates which the Lord thy God giveth thee, but at the place which the Lord thy God shall choose to place his name in, there thou shalt sacrifice the Passover at evening, and the going down of the sun at the seasons that thou comest forth out of Egypt. And thou shalt roast and eat it in the place which the Lord thy God shall choose. And thou shalt turn in the morning and go unto thy tents. 6 days thou shalt eat unleavened bread, and on the 7th day shall be a solemn assembly to the Lord thy God. Thou shalt do no work therein.
All right. So again, he's giving more details. Some of them are the same and just worded differently. All right. Um, Telling us where that we should be sacrificing the Passover in the place that he would choose to put his name there, which is Jerusalem. All right. Um, in verse 3 is telling us, thou shalt eat no leavened bread with it. 7 days shalt thou eat unleavened bread therewith, even the bread of affliction. But then you will see down in verse, um, where did they go? Uh, oh, here it is, verse 8, where it says, 6 days thou shalt eat unleavened bread, and on the 7th day shall be a solemn assembly to the Lord thy God. If you're not paying attention, it would sound like the Lord's contradicting himself. Well, earlier he said, for 7 days we're supposed to eat unleavened bread. Now he's saying 6 days. And on the 7th day, we're supposed to have a holy convocation. Does that mean we only eat unleavened bread for 6 days, and on the 7th day we can eat anything we want? No. All right. That's why you got to read everything, okay, that has to deal with Passover so that you get a clear understanding. He's just saying it a different way. 7 days we're going to eat unleavened bread, but now he's just saying 6 days you're going to eat unleavened bread. And on the 7th day, you're going to hold a solemn assembly to remind us that we're going to have a holy convocation on that 7th day. yes, we're still supposed to eat unleavened bread on that seventh day because what we read earlier said we're supposed to eat unleavened bread for how many days? 7 days. All right, he's just telling us in different ways. It's sometimes people not really paying attention or not reading everything that might only read this one and say, see, he says 6 days we're supposed to eat unleavened bread. And on the seventh day, we're supposed to have a solemn assembly. So I guess, yeah, we're not supposed to eat unleavened bread on that seventh day. And they'll just leave it at that. That's why you got to go and search out the scriptures and find everything that's got to do with Passover. All right. Um, and you can go through and read about how our forefathers kept, the Passover. Let me see. Let's go to the book of Numbers. You get a, let me see, hold on. Numbers. This thing keeps freezing up and skipping when I'm trying to scroll. That's what I'm telling you. I think they're doing this stuff so on computers on purpose, man. Numbers
Right.
chapter 9, you're going to read verses 10 to 14.
The book of Numbers, chapter 9 and verse 10. Speak unto the children of Israel, saying, If any man, if any man of you or of your posterity shall be unclean by reason of a dead body, or be in a journey far off, yet he shall keep the Passover unto the Lord. The 14th day of the second month at evening they shall keep it, and eat it with an unleavened bread and bitter herbs. They shall leave none of it unto the morning, nor break any bone of it, according to all the ordinance of the Passover. They shall keep it. But the man that is clean and is not in journey, and forbeareth to keep the Passover, even the same soul shall be cut off from the among his people, because he brought not the offering of the Lord in his appointed season. That man shall bear his sin. And if a stranger shall sojourn among you, and will keep the Passover unto the Lord according to the ordinance of the Passover, and according to the number thereof, so shall he do. He shall have one ordinance both for the stranger and for him that was born in the land.
So he's talking about strangers, talking about those Israelites that weren't actually born in Jerusalem or born in Israel, that were living in foreign lands and just so happened to be born there. But he brings up a couple of things. The only way that you are not to celebrate the Passover, only excuse that you have to not celebrate it is, let's say a family member passed away and they had the funeral for the family member on the day just before the Passover. And of course, in your grief, you're touching all on on the body, kissing and hugging the body. And so now you would be considered unclean because you've touched this dead body. You were not to have the Passover, eat the Passover. The only other exception is if you were on a far journey. Let's say you were on a trip somewhere. Your boss sent you on a trip, way somewhere else, and you weren't able to celebrate the Passover. Then that means you would have to celebrate it in the second month at the same time, the second month on the 14th day at evening, and still hold it the same way you would have on the first day of the month. Those are the only two ways you can get out of celebrating, and not get out of it, but the only two excuses you would have to not celebrate the Passover. All right. Um, Let's go to Numbers 28 and verses 16 through 25. So we're just, like I said, we're just going through this. So give you an understanding of how the Passover should be kept, the instructions that were given to Israel on how we're supposed to keep it, when we're supposed to keep it, why we're supposed to keep it. Um, this general knowledge of the Passover. That's all this lesson is.
The book of Numbers, chapter 28, and verse 16. In the 14th day of the first month is the Passover of the Lord. And in the first day of this month is the feast. 7 days shall unleavened bread
15th
be
day.
eaten. And in the 15th day of this month is the feast. 7 days shall unleavened bread be eaten. In the first day shall be an holy convocation. You shall do no manner of servile work therein. But ye shall offer a sacrifice made by fire for a burnt offering unto the Lord. 2 young bullocks and 1 ram, and 7 lambs of the first year. They shall be unto you without blemish. And their meat offering shall be of flour mingled with oil. 3 tenth deals shall ye offer for a bullock, and 2 tenth deals for a ram. A s- uh, several ten a several tenth deals shall thou offer for every lamb throughout the 7 lambs, and 1 goat for a sin offering to make an atonement for you. You shall offer these besides the burnt offering in the morning, which is for a continual burnt offering. After this manner ye shall offer daily throughout the 7 days the meat of the sacrifice made by fire of a sweet savor unto the Lord. It shall be offered besides the continual burnt offering and his drink offering. And on the 7th day ye shall have an holy convocation, ye shall do no servile work.
All right. So the commandment here is that we are supposed to still do our sin offerings and all of that during the Passover. In today's times, we don't do sacrifices. So, what kind of sacrifices should you be giving throughout those 7 days of the Passover? You should be giving the sacrifices of the fruit of your lips, doing what? Giving praise to the Most High and prayer and supplication to the Most High daily throughout those 7 days. All right. That's how we give sacrifice to the Lord now. Okay. Um, but back then, yeah, you would still have had to give those sacrifices for your sin offering and all of those to make atonement for your sins. Um, we don't do that anymore because once Christ died on the cross, he became that sacrificial lamb. All right. Um, let me see. Let's go to Numbers 33 and 1 through 3.
The book of Numbers, chapter 33, and verse 1. These are the journey of the children of Israel, which went forth out of the land of Egypt with their armies under the hand of Moses and Aaron. And Moses wrote their goings out according to their journey by the commandment of the Lord. And these are their journeys according to the going out. And they departed from Ramses in the first month, on the 15th day of the first month, on the morrow after the Passover. The children of Israel went out with a high hand in the sight of all the Egyptians.
So some people, again, you see, they left on the 15th day, on the morrow after the Passover. See, the Passover is on the 14th. When you read the scriptures, the word morrow doesn't necessarily always mean the next day. On the morrow can mean in the morning. All right, which is what happened in the morning after they had the Passover that evening and they ate the Passover. They got rushed out of there on the morrow, which is the morning of the 15th, in which they had to leave the land of Egypt um, in which it was still somewhat dark. All right. That's why you got to read the scriptures so you don't get confused about some of these things. All right. Um, let's go to Deuteronomy 16 and 1 through 8.
The book of Deuteronomy, chapter 16 and verse 1. Observe the month of Abib and keep the Passover unto the Lord thy God. For in the month of Abib the Lord thy God brought thee forth out of Egypt by night. Thou
Yeah,
shalt
did we
therefore
already deal with?
we did read this.
Did we already? Yeah, we already read that. How did that pop up? Oh, it scrolled down on its own again. I'm sorry. Um, so basically, that's the gist of Passover. All right. Um, on the 14th day at even, which is the 15th day, you should be sitting down, eating your roasted lamb with the bitter herb, with your unleavened bread, with your wine. Um, Again, with your loins girded, with your shoes on, your staff in your hand, as he commands. Uh, Let me see. Remember, you're supposed to eat unleavened bread for 7 days straight. That first day and that last day are Sabbath days. So you're not supposed to do any work. You're not supposed to be working on the day, the first day and the last day of the Passover, the Feast of Unleavened Bread. Um, am I leaving anything out? So remember to get all of the leaven out of your home because that leaven represents. Actually, we're going to go to that. What that leaven actually represents. Let's go to 1 Corinthians 5 and 1 through 13, because there is a spiritual understanding or spiritual meaning behind that leaven and why we want to get that leaven out of the home. It represents sin. So you want to get sin out of your home. All right, go ahead.
The book of First Corinthians, chapter 5 and verse 1. It is reported commonly that there is fornication among you, and such fornication as is not so much as name among the Gentiles, that one should have his father's wife. And you are puffed up, and have not rather mourned that he that had done this deed might be taken away from among you. For I verily, as absent in body, but present in spirit, have judged already, as though I were present, concerning high concerning him that had so done this deed. In the name of our Lord Jesus Christ, when ye are gathered together, and my spirit with the power of our Lord Jesus Christ, to deliver such an one unto Satan for the destruction of the flesh, that the spirit may be saved in the day of the Lord Jesus. Your glory is not good. Know ye not that a little leaven leaveneth the whole lump? Purge out therefore the old leaven, that ye may be a new lump, as ye are unleavened. For even Christ our Passover is sacrificed for us. Therefore let us keep the feast, not with old leaven, neither with the leaven of malice and wickedness, but with the unleavened bread of sincerity and truth. I wrote unto you in an epistle, not to company with fornicators, yet not altogether with the fornicator of this world, or with the covetous, or extortioners, or with idolaters, for them must ye need go out of the world. But now I have written unto you not to keep company, if any man that is called a brother be a fornicator, or covetous, or an idolater, or a railer, or a drunkard, or an extortioner, with such as one no not to eat. For what have I to do with judges? Hold on. For what have I to judge them also that are without? Do not ye judge them that are within? But then that are without judge it. Therefore put away from among yourselves that wicked person.
So that leaven, the reason why we want to get the leaven out of our homes, because that leaven represents our sins, our iniquities. So you want to become a new person. You should be purging out that old sin, becoming unleavened. All right. That leaven, as it says, represents malice and wickedness. But we want to be unleavened bread. What is that? Of sincerity and truth. I'm going to read it again. Your glorying, verse 6, your glorying is not good. Know ye not that a little leaven leaveneth the whole lump? Purge out therefore the old leaven, that ye may be a new lump. Just as the scriptures tells us, uh, we should be becoming a new man. All right. As ye are unleavened, for even Christ our Passover is sacrificed for us, because Christ is our Passover. Christ became that sacrificial lamb for us. All right. So what we're doing today is in commemoration of the Passover itself, and also for Christ sacrificing himself for us. So therefore, let us keep the feast not with old leaven, neither with the leaven of malice and wickedness. So all of that malice and wickedness, that sin that you have bottled up inside of you, you need to let that go. This is that time of the year where you should be purging yourself of your sin. All right, giving us another opportunity to do that. But with the
Right.
unleavened bread of sincerity and truth. Okay, dropping down to verse 11, he says, "But now I have written unto you not to keep company if any man that is called a brother be a fornicator, or covetous, or an idolater, or a railer, or a drunkard, or an extortioner. With such an one, know not to eat." And it's funny because sometimes you watch some of these Passovers and these feasts, and you see people walking around drunk at some of these things. All right, which shouldn't be happening. If you know a brother is dealing with alcohol like that, for me, I don't agree that they should be serving, no strong drink and alcohol at any of these events whatsoever. The scriptures tells us, yeah, to drink wine with the with the meal, but that should be the extent of it. But that's not what you see happening in some of these venues. You see brothers walking around in some of these Passovers almost stumbling over drunk. But he's telling us that you shouldn't keep company or even sit down and eat with any of our brothers. Let me read it again. If any man that is called a brother be a fornicator, or covetous, or an idolater, or a railer, or a drunkard, or an extortioner, with such an one know not to eat. And then we're further told in verse 13, but them that are without God judges. Therefore, put away from among yourselves that wicked person. So, any of our people that are dealing with any of these kind of issues, we're not supposed to be sitting down and having Passover with them. So, if you know that your family members are not believers, or friends are not believers, or you know what I mean, they're completely caught up in all kinds of wickedness and sin. See, that's the difference between what God teaches in the Bible and what is going on in these churches. Because at Thanksgiving and Christmas, even cousin Ray, that everybody knows, always walking around strapped, has all committed all kinds of crimes, got all kind of bodies out there, can still come down the ground, to Big Mama's house and sit down for Thanksgiving, and eat some turkey and celebrate Thanksgiving with the family. And everybody in the family know he just got out the pen recently and still out there in the streets doing dirt. That's not supposed to be happening. But in Christianity, God love everybody, including cousin Ray, who's the thug, he could come and sit down and eat Thanksgiving, too. Or Christmas comes around and um, I don't know, just names are popping up. Cousin Christy, throw a name out there, Cousin Christy, that everybody knows works in the club, dancing on the pole, can show up to Christmas dinner and show up to Christmas Day and come and sit down and kick it with the family and but in reality that's not supposed to be happening. Anybody that's caught up in any sin is not supposed to be coming down and sitting down and partaking in these feasts. All right. And it's not our words, that's what's written in the scriptures. Let me read it again. Therefore, put away from among yourselves that wicked person. Let me go back up to verse 11. But now I've written unto you not to keep company with any man that is called a brother, be a fornicator, or covetous, or an idolater, or a railer, or a drunkard, or an extortioner. With such an one, know not to eat. Not our
Mhm.
words, scriptures. All right. Let's go to 2 Corinthians chapter 13 and verses 11 through 14. So, Lord's will, this information that we given you on how to keep the scripture, keep the Passover, go back and read them over and over and over again so that you can get a proper understanding on how to keep it and when to keep it. All right, because you're not going to remember all these details. That's why it's good for us to go over it over and over and over and over again, so that it becomes
Right.
second nature. No different than when you were celebrating Christmas and all of that during or Easter, uh, when we were a part of the world and caught up in the Christian churches.
Right.
You knew exactly when Easter was. You knew exactly what you're going to do. You're going to dress up in your Sunday best, go to church on Easter Sunday, go to Big Mama house on Sunday, Easter Sunday night, where Big Mama was going to cook the Easter dinner with the ham and all of that. The kids are going to be outside. They're going to have their Easter baskets. They're going to have the Easter egg hunts. You know exactly how to keep Easter. So we need to learn exactly how to keep Passover and dump everything we know about Easter out of our brains. All right. Go ahead. Read what you got.
The book of 2 Corinthians, chapter 13, and verse 11. Finally, brethren, farewell. Be perfect, be of good comfort, be of one mind. Live in, live in peace, and the God of love and peace shall be with you. Greet one another with a holy kiss. All the saints salute you. The grace of the Lord Jesus Christ and the love of God and the commission of the Holy Ghost be with you all. Amen.
We go to Ecclesiastes chapter 12, verse 13 through 14.
The book of Ecclesiastes, chapter 12, and verse 13. Let us hear the conclusion of the whole matter. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. For God shall bring every work into judgment with every secret thing, whether it be good or whether it be evil.
And with that, we're going to say shalom. Most High in Christ bless. Lord's will, this simple class sparks your interest in learning how to keep the Passover, that you will go through and study, learn more about the Passover. Like I said, go and read the entire book of Exodus and, learn more and keep the Passover. All right. You can keep the Passover in your home with your family and uh, they're believing Israelites. You don't have to be a part of a large congregation in order to keep the Passover. Some people tend to want to believe. Um, as Christ said, where two or three are gathered in my name, there am I in the midst of them. Paraphrasing. But you don't have to be a part of a big, huge, large camp in order to keep the Passover. Um, so, with that, we're going to say shalom. Most High in Christ bless. We'll see you next Sabbath. It sounds like you're getting sick too.
Yeah.
Getting that cough. Yeah, there's something going around right now. All right, shalom.